Please welcome Paulina Luna. Thank you so much for joining us, Republican candidate for Congress in Pinellas County.
Yes, Trump endorsed.
You were the Republican nominee a couple of years ago. You lost that race, but with turnout, you got nearly as many votes as any Republican has in that district. But it's changed. Do you support the decision to split St. Pete basically in half?
I support Governor DeSantis' decision to basically return the district to a fair district, right? So we know that one of the biggest issues was the area in Tallahassee, that it was basically being redistricted, or it was drawn in an effort to favor a minority class. I can tell you that as a minority woman, that I agree that you should not be drawing districts based on someone's racial, ethnicity, or origin. So I support that decision.
Former President Obama ended the ban on oil exports. There are now efforts to reinstate it, to drive up our domestic supply. Do you support the efforts to reinstate that ban on exporting oil from the United States?
The United States has literally one of the biggest supplies of cleanest oil in the entire world. There's no reason why we need to be going to places like Saudi Arabia or even Venezuela to get those oil sources.
Should we be exporting it, or should we ban it as we did prior to former President Obama's actions?
So that means keeping it here and selling it directly to our people. That's what we need to be doing.
So you would support a ban in order to increase the domestic supply?
Frankly, yes.
Now, that puts you right in line with Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, and it takes you out of step with your party. Are you comfortable with that and the qualms they raise about the consequences of doing it?
My decisions and what I make is what's best for the American people. That's the America First platform. If it means not selling to other countries so that here in the United States we can literally lower the gas prices, that's what I agree with.
Well, the arguments against are that it would wound our allies in Europe, that it would boost Vladimir Putin, that it would reduce supply on the global market and thereby drive up global prices and therefore drive up our prices, and it could reduce refining capacity in this country. To those points,
if we really want to hinder Vladimir Putin, we need to start with going after China. China, this entire time, especially in regards to Ukraine, has been aiding and abetting with Russia, right? If we really want to focus on how we can stop that and stop this global inflation that we're seeing, we have to start with, one, maintaining our position as a global superpower, and then also to ensuring that our production comes back here to the United States. There's been a huge problem in politics in particular with people being afraid to say that China is one of the biggest threats that we as a nation, whether you are a Democrat, Republican, or independent, are facing. Going back to the oil issue, going back to what we can do here in the United States to stop that immediately, we have every single natural resource we need in this country. We don't need anyone else, and to really go elsewhere is a complete joke to me.
You're calling for increased investments in infrastructure and technology in your platform.
Yes.
So did you support or would you have voted against the bipartisan infrastructure law?
I think the infrastructure bill that was passed had a lot of pork that was unnecessary spending. So that's the one thing that I'm adamantly opposed to. I think that if we're going to write bills, that it needs to go specifically to those causes and issues.
But here's the challenge. Most bills are going to have that in them, and you will see good and bad in various bills.
I agree.
With respect to that one, and you're going to see some good and bad. Which way would you have gone, yes or no?
I would not have voted for it, because I do believe that it's not excusable for any party to put in, for example, what we saw with recently what happened to our veterans. They had a bill that they proposed for veterans, but there was unnecessary spending that did not go to vets, and I don't agree with that.
You're talking about the PACT Act?
Yes, I'm talking about that.
Well, it's a good example. Would you have voted yes or no, given your qualms with the spending contained within?
I would have proposed a better bill that actually had legislation that put that funding towards only veterans.
Well, but
yes.
Here's where it gets tricky. That one may not advance, and you're left with the one before you, and you have to make those difficult decisions given the mixed feelings you have about it. So on the PACT Act, with the concerns that you just relayed and the value you see in protecting our vets and giving them the benefits they deserve, would you have voted yes or no?
Well, if I was in Congress, I would have voted no. However, I will say this. There was a president, his name was John F. Kennedy. He said, where there are man-made problems, there are man-made solutions. And so I believe talking in hypotheticals is not really a fair example, because if I was in Congress, I would have voted and I would have ensured, I would have gone to every single office I had to and knocked on those doors and twisted arms, as they say, in an effort to make sure that that bill went to veterans. That is what I care about.
Your husband was honorably discharged,
Yes.
if I understand correctly, for declining to take the COVID vaccine. Do you support, or will you, if elected, pursue efforts to get rid of those vaccine requirements in the military?
I think that they should have acknowledged and honored people's religious exemptions. I can tell you, having gone through that process, not only did they make it nearly impossible for people to actually be able to do the paperwork to get that religious exemption, but then these people were discharged, and a lot of these families were on single incomes. So when I'm elected, because I do feel, based on the effort that our team's putting forward and based on what we're seeing with the grassroots outreach in this community, I will sponsor a bill to either get those people reinstated honorably back into the service, or give them the option of getting a stipend from the federal government because of the fact that they were wrongfully discriminated against and discharged.
So you think there should be a religious exemption for
Yes.
all vaccines in the military?
I think so.
What about beyond that? If you just don't want it for some other reason, should you be compelled as a member of the military to get it? Any vaccine?
People being forced to take vaccines where they don't necessarily know the long-term outcome of what these vaccines might have, I think that that's a problem. I can tell you that, obviously, being a service member, I've been vaccinated against everything under the sun. But I can also tell you that for other people, you know, the one thing I will say is that your medical decisions in regards to vaccines especially should be your decision to make, and it shouldn't be that of the federal government. And so I am against all mandates.
The current representative of this district and his predecessor both made name for themselves as Republicans and then later left their parties. You have in your past supported President Obama. So to voters who see that, put that in context. Explain to them what you based your support on back then, and with respect to your commitment to party today, why you can guarantee that you would not betray them in that way.
I'm actually super glad that you brought this up. I was actually raised in a Democrat household, okay? And so when Barack Obama ran the first time, I was a young teenager. When he ran the second time, I was still a teenager, but I didn't actually register to vote until 2015, and the first president that I voted for was President Trump. And so a lot of people will try to take that and spin it, but Barack Obama was actually known early on as the deporter-in-chief during his first term.
Yes, that's
and
true.
He actually said, and there's clips, and I've posted it, that he was known for saying, don't come here illegally, you will be hurt in the process.
That is absolutely true.
And I agree with that
He also
statement.
was the author of DACA, and he also called for a pathway to citizenship. So speak to those points.
I will. I'm going to play this for you guys real quick.
President Obama's immigration policies, of which
Pretty much follow the same exact.
You mean the first iteration when he said, I can't just change the laws, not the second iteration when he did.
President Obama specified that the reason why people should not be coming here illegally is because of the dangerous process. That is what I said. I was talking specifically about illegal immigration. And so in an effort to spin this, because as you know, sir, this is now an open Republican seat and I am the Trump-endorsed candidate. So they're going to throw everything they can at me. Unfortunately, that's politics. But I can put the truth out there and let the American people, the residents of Pinellas people, know that I don't support that.
Paulina Luna, thank you for your time.
Thank you.